Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Alyson Pellowe. Welcome to the Supervision webinar. This is our last official webinar of 2021. What a year it has been. And today what we're going to be covering is still motivating hybrid teams. Can you believe it? A year on, we are still trying to do that. So we've got some slides here that we're going to go through with you. But just to say, if there's anyone on the call today who is a senior HR or learning and development person that would like to join our VIP group, we've got that going now. And we do monthly calls and have some good interaction with that team. So if you'd like to join, we'd love that. The next thing is that your feedback matters. We will be sending you an email after the session today. So it has a link in. We would really appreciate your feedback. All goes good for us on Google. So if you could do that, we'd appreciate it. And now I'm going to hand over to Julia, who has worked with me for, I'm going to say 10 years. Julia, is it? Do you reckon? Yeah,
it feels like that, doesn't it?
So Julia's an amazing coach. She works on insights and she does team development. So I'm going to hand over to her, but please do keep asking questions and going into the chat. So off you go, Julia.
Thank you, Alyson. If you can just go to our first slide and we can have a look at what we're going to get out of this session. So we're looking at motivating your team members and sustaining that throughout the working day, boosting morale, motivation, looking at the one-to-one session. And then I'm going to hand over to Alyson, who's going to talk a little bit about Zoom and making the most of those tools. And then, you know, we are in this strange world still, a bit half in, half out. So how can we make sure that we still have that, you know, foster that team working atmosphere? And, you know, people still feel part of that team and they feel motivated as a team. So we're looking first of all at motivation, motivating your team members. And next slide, please. It's so important, it's so obvious, isn't it? But really knowing your team members, knowing their, you know, what sort of work they enjoy doing. I think sometimes, you know, when we're all in the office together, we just kind of gradually get to know people at the coffee machine, the water cooler. And now we have to really take time to, you know, talk about what motivates them. So, you know, what sort of work do they enjoy? Where do they see themselves going? Communication, 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 so important. What are their preferences? So would they prefer a catch up on Teams with the cameras on or Zoom? Would they prefer a phone call, or, you know, do they want to wait for a face-to-face? So really understanding what mediums they prefer, or good old, you know, email. But also not only the mediums, but do they like it nice and succinct? Just the what you want, you know, very direct? Or do they want to have a chat about the kids, the dog, you know, how things are going at home? So, you know, if you can, and our insights colleagues amongst us will know, if you can communicate in the way that people like to be communicated with, then that will really strengthen the relationship. If you know what they enjoy, you know what they're good at, play to their strengths and identify development needs. You know, I think a little bit, first of all, in March 2020, you know, training and development got put on the back burner, and really it's so important. So, you know, still talking about development and making them feel and know that they have a future and a career plan. And you know, what's going on in their world. This home and work life have been brought together, so it's useful. And as much as they want to share with you, you know, what's going on with their world. Are they working at home with other people and builders and all, you know, that's really useful to know what sort of pressures they're under. Alyson, next one,
that's
please.
great. So
Yeah.
guys, if we could look at the chat and tell us, you know, what sort of makeup is there in your team? So you know, how many people are you working with? Are they all remote? What is it that do you think that they like to communicate? If you could just pop that in the chat for us so we can get an understanding. Also, I think culturally it's different, isn't it, Julia? So,
Yeah.
you know, I think, you know, different organizations operate in different ways. So what sort of organizations have you worked with, Julia, and you know that you find obviously more technical organizations? What's your experience of working with organizations and the different people and how they like to communicate?
Well, I think when March 2020 hit, I was doing some change management development, and the thought was that to get everybody home working effectively would take 11 months. It actually took 11 days.
Yeah.
And I think whilst, you know, you as a trainer as well, Alyson, we go into different organisations and we get the feel of how things are done around here, and it can be very different. I think people had to do that all over again in a remote environment. And, you know, my world crashed with everybody else. But then I started to get a few calls from clients about doing some stuff on stress and resilience and well-being. That became very, very important. I must say, clients that I had that were already doing a lot of home working did find it probably a little bit easier
Yeah.
to fit into it.
Yeah, so guys on the chat, we don't have any chat yet. Come on, I'm looking for some chat. Thank you, Paul Burton. I'm working in very traditional organizations and moving them towards hybrid working, less command and control. So what sort of organizations though, what sort of cultures? I know we've got, as an example, Patrick on the line, and he's got a family business. So, but it'd be good to know. Hi, Amy, I can see Amy, she's one of our customers who's on the call today. Carol, I know you work with lots of different organizations. Tell us where you think that the hybrid working, you know, and the sort of teams that you're working with. It'd be great to get a flavour for who's on the call and what they're experiencing. And yeah, I think it takes time for people to understand how they wanted to work. So Emily says she works with a real mix, some people wanting to come into the office and others still staying at home. It's much harder to keep the connection with those who are wanting to stay quite remote. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think we've also been we did a webinar earlier in the year about introverts and extroverts, you know, and the extroverts all can't wait to get back to the office, and the introverts are quite happy. But the fact is that we need a mixture. Helen says we've got 95% remote with an option to go to the office if we choose. So yeah, I mean, and the next slide, back over to you, Julia, about sustaining momentum.
Yeah, I think in this remote world, we've had to really make sure that our people know that we're there for them, know their working patterns. So when people were homeschooling, you know, and looking after people, their patterns might have changed a bit. So it's being mindful of that. And you've also, as a leader, got your own objectives, your own work to do. And you can get caught up in that. So many Teams calls, Zoom calls, and not forgetting that you've got your workforce out there beavering away, and you need to support and encourage them in their work and their development. Also, the company tools that might not be so visible because we're not in the workplace seeing the posters up in the canteen about mentoring programs and coaching programs. It's being mindful that you need to keep up to date with what's going on in the organisation, and you know, your learning and development people should be in touch with you as business partners, telling you what's going on, but making sure that you do tap into all those resources.
Yeah, interesting. Lorraine says we have the team were going to the office 1 day a week, but since the recent outbreak, we're all now back at home working 100%. I mean, I think that is just, well, I mean, I know that we're all trying to cope with COVID, but that in itself is really frustrating, isn't it? You know, you just think you might be getting back, just getting into a routine, and then this happens. And I guess, I don't know what anyone else thinks. I think we're in for 5 years of this sort of in and out and in and out. So I think sustaining the momentum is so difficult. Carol says NHS clinical and non-clinical working from home some of the time. A lack of office space adds to that. And then Samuel says, as a mental health first aider, I prefer to run the courses face to face. Yeah, exactly. So I can look after people who might become distressed. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's great that we're running this today, but I even was saying to Julia, right, when we were doing the test, you know, get as close as you can to the camera so we can see a wrinkle. I mean, no, not see a wrinkle.
Shut up.
So that we can really, you know, connect as much as possible. But back to you, Julia, the slide, you know, what are your thoughts?
Well, you've just made me think of something. A client of mine up at Heathrow Airport, they have to be in because of the nature of the work. They're handling cargo, but some of their managers and leaders are based at home. So there's a bit of a feeling of, well, they need to come in and see us, and must be nice at home. And then, but then me, you know, when it hit, I was at home. All I wanted to do was be face to face. So you kind of got to make sure there's not a them and us with the home workers and the face to face. Just one of your people in the chat just made me kind of think of that.
Yeah, and we've got people who been out, as an example, Patrick's been working 46 years as a journalist, being out and about, you know, and it's so, I mean, it's so restraining. So yeah, do you have some more things on this slide, Julia, that you wanted to share?
No, I think if we go on to the one-to-ones, which is my pet subject, they are so important. People think, oh, it's a bit of a catch-up, a one-to-one. Catch-ups are important, and you know, in the remote world, as we've been talking about, catching up with people, checking in with them. But the one-to-one, structured one-to-ones are really important, whether they're weekly, maybe for newer people, or monthly or 6 weekly. That will depend on the nature of the business, whether they're going to be remote or face-to-face. But it's really important to have them. It's important to have an agenda. It's the forum where you can motivate people, you can delegate to them. It's performance management. You're tracking against their objectives. They can raise issues. It's that protected time, the protected space when there's no other directions, but you're focused on that individual. Talking about, you know, maybe not at every one-to-one, but training and development. So, and it just makes that yearly appraisal so much easier because you've been really up to date on your performance management throughout the year. And on the slide there, we've got, you know, feedback. Important to seek feedback for you and them from clients or teammates or stakeholders, you know, whoever would be providing feedback. So, and I think in March 2020, it went to catch-ups on well-being, and I think maybe the official one-to-ones got a bit down by the wayside, but really, really important to have them. And if we go to the next slide, we can look at the importance of remote one-to-ones. You'd always prepare for your face-to-face. I always used to prepare for my boss when I had a proper job, and you know, think about the things I wanted to talk about. And you still need to do that with remote one-to-ones. Get the tech sorted, which Alyson's going to be talking about. Getting comfortable with the technology takes time for some people. Maybe easier than others. I do try and encourage people, and again, it's a culture thing, but encourage people to have their cameras on. And the most important bit is to really listen to what's being said, and listen to what's not being said, and don't be afraid to push a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing the slides and just get more of a sense from the people in the room today. So hi to Samuel, Fathom, Marilyn, Rose, Carmen, you know, so many lovely people on the call today, some of which I know, some of you I don't. But I encourage you all to go onto the chat, some really good stuff on the chat today, and just want to think more, going back a few slides, we'll go back to the one-to-ones, but thinking about the kind of momentum and how are you all. Feel free to put your cameras on or unmute yourself if you, or raise your hand so that I can unmute you if you don't know how to do that. You know, talking about how are you in your businesses keeping that momentum going. Be great to have some comments. I think so. Kathy says, I think you made a good point, Alyson. How to maintain the momentum and uncertainty is the challenge. Just when you know where you're going, then there's all change. And how can we get through that? So what are your thoughts, guys? So Amanda, Jared, Paul, you know, what do you think? So Andrew Levitt says all staff meetings are done over Zoom, so office and home workers are on the same level. I speak with my main colleagues every day on Teams and on Slack. So guys, what do you think? I'm not going to move on until I've got some ideas from the group about what you think. Patrick, I think you've got an idea.
Alyson, and Julia, thank you very much. When I said, how do you make it sexy? I don't mean that literally. How do you make Zoom and Teams exciting again? How do you make people want to look forward to them? Because, you know, what I hear is, for example, my daughter, she got employed by a big advertising agency in February, and she met 8 months later, she met for the first time her boss face to face. And they Zoom and it's, you know, Teams meetings every single day, and people are basically Zoomed out and teamed out. When you got a Zoom meeting and team meeting, not this, Alyson, you know, this is exciting, you're learning more, but people get bored, you know, they say, oh God, not another one, you know, I got to sit in front of my computer again. Whereas sitting in front of a person is just so different. I know it's the new norm, but it is Zoom fatigue and team fatigue has set in, you know, and how do you revitalize that? Because it's a way to, you know, we're all on it, and you can't go out there and interact like we used to. How do we get it sort of exciting? It was very exciting in the beginning. Zoom shares went through the roof, Teams, everyone was doing it, was all very exciting, but it's like sort of pretty boring now.
Yeah.
And I stress, not this, Alyson, I'm talking about, you know, normal operational daily liaison with staff and even outside people, you know, even doing interviews on it. It's terrible nowadays.
Yeah, so some ideas are coming in from people, but do keep them going. I mean, so Ros says she uses the phone, it's more intimate than the video sometimes. I absolutely agree with that. Sometimes I think if you are trying to have, you know, just a different vibe going on, again, and it isn't just the introverts that would rather the camera off, you know, lots of people prefer the camera off, but I think, Ros, that's a really good point. You know, it doesn't all have to be on you know, video. Samuel says, personally, I think that it's here to stay, and we really just need to find ways to make them exciting. Yeah. I mean, Helen then has a good point. We use walking meetings. I think that's great. Put your headphones in and, you know, either take your dog for a walk, you know, and say we're all going to meet. I also know people that if they were in the city, they would, you know, go for a walk around the city, talk about what they're seeing at the same time, but doing it virtually. So in their different work, you know, go for walks near their house. Paul McManus says that the same work is getting done. It does mean that the immediate shouts across the office are missing. Absolutely. Sometimes results letting things down. Virtual coffees, yeah, absolutely. Icebreakers, we'll switch it up and use facilitation tools. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd really look forward, because I know there's some trainers on the call today, so it'd be great to get some ideas. And then Amanda says we've been able to use our supervisions in person. I think that's a coaching thing, Amanda, I'm not sure. Samuel says, I often play games with my team. I would generally change the background and move around the room on a regular basis. That's really interesting. That's a great idea. So actually setting yourself up in different places so that people aren't looking at, or on Teams, if you use MS Teams, you can literally change your background. Andrew says we're having a works party in person with in-person attendance and hybrid meeting mix, so everyone feels involved. Yeah, I mean, not everybody wants to come to a said office party at the moment. And I understand that. Emily says informal meetups in person where people live in the same neighborhoods but aren't coming into the city. Yeah, okay, that's great. But I suppose online, you know, what are we saying about this momentum? You know, those are all very transactional different things, aren't they? You know, how can we keep the momentum going longer term? I mean, I don't have the answers. Do you, Julia, you know, particularly?
Well, I think Patrick raised a really good point about this fatigue. And when lockdown happened, not only were people working from home within the 11 days, but they were also doing their hobbies from home. You know, my choir went to Zoom and people doing quizzes all the time and all those sorts of things. And yeah, you just get zoomed out. So I think naturally, and we've had a couple of comments in the chat about being a little bit more creative, a little bit more choosy, but I think you've got to, and what is probably happening is you find out what works, what doesn't work for people. You're not going to, you know, keep everybody happy all of the time. One client of mine, and they've kept this up, on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, they all go onto a Teams call and they all bring a glass or a cup of something that they like. So, you know, it could be a glass of wine or it could be a cup of tea, whatever. And they just spend about 20 minutes, half an hour off the subject of work.
Yeah.
And they're now back in the office a little bit more, but some aren't able to come back. And they've kept that going, 4 o'clock on a Friday. So, you know, that could be something that you do. But I think, yeah, some stuff you do won't work, but some, and maybe unexpectedly, will work and people really like it. And I think if you've managed remote teams before, you know the importance of, you know, people on the road and that, you know the importance of checking in with them regularly. So have your one-to-ones, but just that regular catch up when they're you know, driving home from their session or client meeting, because they are out of the organisation when they're doing that, and you need to make them feel part of it. So it's just keeping that communication going in whatever mode suits you both and the team.
Andrew said online ficas. I don't know whether that's a typo or that is a thing. Andrew, perhaps you can let us know what that is.
It's online ficas. So it's the Swedish thing where basically we all meet up online, and we used to have it in our office, but then it went to online, and it's basically half an hour every week or every other couple of weeks, and it's just basically talking about anything except work.
Yeah.
So what does fika stand for? It's just a
fika. No, fika. It's for Swedish for get together. It's for Swedish for friendship. So that's what that is. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Just calling it something different.
Yeah, and where I worked before, where I am now, we had a similar thing, and that was also fika. So, as I say, it's the Swedish for friendship or the Swedish for get together. But yeah.
Oh, well, then you could have a little IKEA moment. Everyone could get send your staff some meatballs or something, and you know, have anything just to make it, you know, different. I like Kathy's idea here with some participants on training events. We send them a personalised notebook at the beginning and a certificate at the end, so there's a hybrid experience, something tangible and something intangible. I think that's a lovely idea. And I think, obviously, I don't know, looking through LinkedIn or Facebook, there's lots of organizations that will happily send your teams, your staff, things that they can wine taste, or they can chocolate taste, or vegan taste, whatever the thing is. So yeah, and then Andrew says lots of arrangements are one-to-one, especially with line managers. Yeah, so Kathy says get people making meatballs in the kitchen. That's a great idea. You know, creating meatballs. Everyone can, even those who can't cook, can buy ready-made ones, maybe. So we probably would not attend so many meetings, says Carol, each day in person. So it's easy to invite everyone. So that's true. You know, there is an equity about being online, that everybody can be invited. So those are some really good points. So now I just want to pick up a little bit on one-to-ones. So how many of you on the call, do you all know how to raise your hand thing? How many on the call are, or you can put your thumbs up or something like that. How many of you are actually managers of people? Please, if I could have a show of hands. I am looking at her. Yeah, Hayley is. Hi, Hayley. Well done. She's worked out. Amy is. Yeah. Samuel is. Patrick is. Emily is. Paul is. Yeah, great. Brilliant. So how can I ask that particular audience who are managers, How have you coped with the one-to-one scenario over the last year? Perhaps some comments, or unmute yourself, whatever you prefer to do.
Yeah, I've found pretty straightforward, to be honest, because I would much prefer to be in the office across a desk or in a room with someone. But on Teams, we use Teams quite often, and it's still got the same information, the same questions, the same interaction. But for me, I also like to just ask the guys to come into the office on occasion if they feel comfortable. We have very strict COVID regulations, but if they feel comfortable, even just spending a couple of hours in the same vicinity. And it does combat that whole thing about when you have a one-to-one, you can then refer back to this when you're in the office rather than having to set up a call every time you want to ask a question.
Yeah.
I just think it's so much easier. But one-to-ones, I have to be honest, I've found pretty straightforward over Teams, because you get to know your people anyway, so it's not as if it's a completely strange person that you're speaking to. So I don't have an issue with it, to be honest.
Good. And are you still in Scotland, Paul?
Yeah, still in Glasgow.
Oh, so nice to hear
Freezing.
that lovely accent.
Freezing cold.
Well, they're really strict up there, aren't they? You've got really, really strict COVID situation going on.
Yeah, we've kind of gotten used to it, and I'm currently in the health and social care sector. So the fact that we're really strict in some of the care communities and some of the homes and housing elements that we have, that is just kind of filtered right through. So even the people in the head office, very, very strict. You got to book in, you got to sign in, temperature test, the whole thing.
Yeah. So. Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. And Amy says one-to-one supervision works really well. Oh, sorry, my screen's just moved a bit. Oh, heck. One-to-one supervision works well on Zoom. It's the day-to-day interaction that's missing. Okay. So Amy says, I'm constantly encouraging the team to pick up the phone so that they don't send endless emails every day. I mean, that is really important. Patrick talks about his daughter who's just started a job. Sounding like a granny, but you know, the use of the telephone full stop for the younger generation is reducing. You know, they're either, I think there's that missing part, they're either texting, Snapchatting. Picking the actual phone up is a challenge, I think. Would you agree, Julia?
Well, I've got 2 daughters just starting their working lives, and I think that this is really important. You know, when we talk about introversion, extroversion, we're still social animals. We still need to, you know, make sure that we're having contact. And, you know, I do get concerned about them being locked away, well, you know, not only with their phones, but now in the working environment, you know, they need to be out there meeting people. And so, you know, I think we have to be really mindful of what may suit us. And, you know, we might have a nice office that we can sit in. You know, some other people, they're flat sharing. There's 4 people in a dwelling trying to work from home, sharing the Wi-Fi. I think we have to be really mindful. It's horses for courses. And you know, that's what we need to do when we're sustaining motivation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just checking, can everyone see the lovely girls smiling into the iPad?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. So, I mean, I think also what Patrick was saying earlier about, you know, onboarding new people, younger people into the workplace. And if you're managing them, I think they're going to be great on the actual tech, obviously, but, you know, starting a new job, and those first few months, you know, I know my friend is, she's a general counsel, so she's in the world of legal, and she said, I need those trainees, I need them in the office with me. They're not going to develop, and they're no good to me in the business unless I've got them. So, I mean, using Zoom, I'm sure everybody on the call has got some great tips. So, you know, just some that I've used. If you could all actually, you know, if you know how to use Zoom yourself, that's great, you know, so, you know, using the hands, getting, so this isn't just for Zoom, but, you know, obviously you've got MS Teams and different platforms, using the hands to get people to interact, definitely getting chat. You have to be better than me at staying quiet when you ask a question. So people definitely comment, you know, and zip it. I find 2 seconds on Zoom, and that's the other thing you need to recognize, that when you're on a video call and like TV, 2 seconds seems like an eternity on video, but 2 seconds on the phone, it's just somebody, you know, taking a breath. So there are the pressure, you know, when you're on Zoom. Definitely look at, you know, breakout rooms. Don't think that they're difficult to set up. They're really easy to set up. I could set one up right now for you to go. You just click a few things. There's loads of tutorials on YouTube. So what else? You can record things so that people can see it afterwards. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know about Zoom, but I think a lot of people got sort of plateaued with their Zoom. They sort of went on, they learned how to do so much. So as an example, at the moment, I'm using Spotlight, which means that myself and Julia should be on the screen all the time. So, you know, it's good we can make different people's Spotlight. Again, that takes the pressure off those who aren't on the call to not have to feel that they've got to be in front of it. So just what I'm saying is explore the technology, because it is relatively easy. Test it in a safe environment, you know, with just 1 or 2 of you. And then when you've got a bigger meeting, so I wouldn't say it was particularly, I wouldn't use the word sexy, Patrick, but maybe it's a bit more interesting to get different. And you know what? People love it if things go wrong, don't they? I mean, honestly, they just love it. If I ballsed up and share my screen with Outlook, which I do occasionally, you know, so everyone can see my emails. Oh, everyone loves that. Alyson, you're on the wrong bit. You know, so just don't feel scared about doing that sort of thing. Any questions before we go on? But any questions or comments about Zoom, just pop them in the, you know, any tips that anyone's got on Zoom would be great. So please just pop that on the chat. So back over to you, Julia, to talk about the bonds within your team.
Yeah, I think that this can be quite tough, especially in the remote in the remote world, because as a leader, you can do your catch-ups, you can do your one-to-ones, you can work on those individual relationships. But as we said, you know, as we said on the last bit, is people aren't perhaps all in the office together, so you don't have that you know, like the youngsters starting out, that they're able to just come over here and share this, and you know, learn in that way, and then you're getting team building just happening organically. So effort has to be made. So, and you know, we've talked about doing things on Zoom like a catch up for the whole team, maybe where we don't talk about work. But it's maybe, if you go to the next slide, I think we've got some points on there about making the most of face-to-face time. Christmas is coming up. I've got a meeting on Friday where the team haven't been in the same room, all of them, for 18 months. So I think it's going to be one hell of a party, you know, when they all get together. And I think they will just be so pleased to connect. We're going to do a little bit of training and stuff on comms, but I think they'll just be so pleased to see each other. Think about different social interactions. You know, we've given things a go. Some things don't work. Some people love a quiz. Some people are quizzed out. But give things a try. It'll be the unexpected things that maybe will work. And as Alyson said, there's companies, you know, that have adapted and will do wine tasting, cheese tasting, whatever parties remotely. Do consider those that are part-time. They've got different working patterns, and you know, consider people's cultures. You know, maybe if you are going to do something with wine and alcohol, consider those people that won't partake in that. Bring us on really to mental health and well-being, which I think are much further up the agenda than they used to be. I know, Alyson, you do a lot in this area now.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit, or does everyone?
Yeah, no, I think I mean, mental health, we have touched on that. We've got lots of webinars, we've done lots of stuff on that. I think it's about asking twice if people are okay. You know, how you going? Oh yeah, no, I'm fine. Now how you going? Are you really? So that piece around, so I've got some lovely Kickstarters working with me, and I make sure, one of them's on the call, so I've got to live true to that. But, you know, I try and make sure that they have an opportunity to check in every day, so that I know I've got checks and balances that they are actually working, because that's another thing, you know, people can say that they're working and they're not, you know, so it isn't just about me managing them on a daily basis. It's about making sure from a health and welfare perspective that they are logging in when they say they're logging in, you know, so that I can be good. I mean, one of my friends, she has a check-in call morning and afternoon with her team. She said, I think that's a bit overkill. She said, I probably won't do so much of that moving forward. But I'm just going to go back to your previous point about number 3, which is about diversity. And I think it's been well documented that there's a lot of opportunities that are being missed by people if they are not in the office and they don't have what we used to call the water cooler moment, the moment shouting over the office, the moment where there's a new project come in and I just happen to be there. And I know Sian's on the call, and that's something she's very passionate about, to make sure that people who are, you know, those new opportunities and that opportunity for growth isn't just within those who happen to be on the Zoom call that day or the Teams call. So I think that's really important. Julia, do you want me to do point 5 about the life cycle?
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So what I really mean about that is being remote at the key points in people's employment. So when they are recruited, so somebody said on the call about, you know, doing recruitment, again, thinking about recruitment online is very challenging. You know, would you want to work with that organization? It is a showcase. So that's the recruitment, the onboarding. Are people getting the right onboarding when they're hybrid? Transition to promotion, development, mentoring, and then exit. You know, somebody's leaving, moving, going on to other parts of their career. So I think we need to think about strengthening the team so people want to be with us. There's a huge thing going on, especially in America, which is called the Great Resignation. It's happening. People are leaving jobs. You know, they've been in these jobs for a long time, you know, through COVID, and they're itching to move. And comments, you know, this stuff around mental health and have people been supported, all links, absolutely all links. So
just like to take a point about recruitment. I'm delivering a lot of selection and recruitment at the moment, virtually, believe it or not. But what we're finding out is actually a plus about the remote environment is that it's quite handy to run first interviews or pre-interviews on Teams or Zoom, and then maybe go to the, you know, that could be part of the shortlisting process, and then bring people into a face-to-face maybe on their second interview. So, you know, my clients are finding it really useful because it's an opportunity to do it kind of a little bit quicker as well. And you know, people going for interviews seem to be okay with it. They seems to be with my daughters, they've said it's a little bit less nerve-wracking being interviewed online.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, and it's less of a hassle rather than going to 20 businesses. That is less than you know, so if they, yeah.
But it's got to, you know, there's considerations that you need to, you know, it's a different way of interviewing slightly. So,
yeah, and I think, you know, I've heard from colleagues who are ADHD that it's brilliant, you know, because they can be really focused. And so somebody who's on the neurodiversity, that might work for some people, but it might not work for others. But as long as, because they can be really prepared.
Yeah, and there are some real positives in it. So I think now really we're coming to the, you know, we've talked about being there for them, but you've got to look after yourself. What is it when you when the plane crashes, you put on your oxygen mask before you put on your dependents that are with you. So you put your oxygen mask on before you put theirs on. So making sure that you look after yourself and you're getting your work-life balance, and then you're in a good place to look after them. Alyson, you've mentioned about, are you okay? Yeah, fine. It's something we say, isn't it? But asking you know, you know intuitively, you know your people if they're, you know, really okay, but don't be afraid to ask. You know, push it a bit if you feel intuitively that you should. You know, encourage them to talk to others, their support networks as well. There will be, in large organisations, lots of resources. HR will be able to point you into the right direction, and set the tone. You are the weather. As a leader, you are the weather for your team. You know, do they, when you come into the room or come onto Teams, are they looking to see what sort of a day you're having? Is it raining, or is it, you know? So just, you know, you set the tone. So be mindful that as leaders, it's, you know, lead by example, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There we go.
Brilliant. And Emily says, on our mental health, we often do a traffic light check in smaller team meetings. Everyone says if they're feeling red, amber, green. People choose to say, or they, if they wish not to say as well. But it gives a sense of how our colleagues are doing. And I think that it's, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, you know, suddenly, well, I don't know, I'm being a bit controversial by saying, it's great that everybody can talk about their mental health, and it's great that people have the confidence to do so. I think it can be a little bit of a domino effect if everybody's feeling unwell. Maybe that can rub off badly. I'm just being honest, you know, about how, but it is really important to get people to talk. But I know there's somebody on the call who's a mental health first aider, and I'm a mental health first aider. Yeah, you've just got to find a way that they can find the right person to help them. So we run mental health first aid training. So if anyone on the call is interested, we do a special price of £300 per delegate if anyone has been on one of our courses. So we're happy to deliver that, as we do with all sorts of things. And Julia's an excellent, as I said, executive team building. She does Insights, which is a psychometric test. She does, what are your top 3 courses, Julia?
Right now, it'll be selection and recruitment, leadership and change management.
Aha.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, fantastic. So, so I think we just need to. Well, I put this slide up for myself. Speak less and listen more, but that's to your team. You know, really do try and sort of ask and probe. But that's it, really. We're 11:44. We did it, Julia. Any questions and comments? It's not time. We've got just a few more minutes. Myself and Julia would be very happy to stay on the call if you've got any particular questions. But there's been some fantastic comments. Please do. You can all, I think you should be all able to download the chat and the comments. So there's some great ideas. Somebody talked about brown bag. Maybe somebody, that's Andrew Levitt. Andrew, do you just want to unmute yourself and tell us about a brown bag experience? Is he there? Andrew. So he's basically saying that a brown bag is sort of a bit like having a bag for your lunch, and you just sit and have a lunchtime chat and talk with your colleagues through particular topics. So any other particular questions, put them on the chat. But if that's all we've got from everybody, Julia, any final closing words from you?
Just good luck with it all. I think we'll be here for quite a while and we're still finding our feet. But thank you very much for inviting me along, Alyson, today. And it's not too early to say Merry Christmas, is it? And all the best for 2022. Don't forget your training and development. That's the most important.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got a couple of people. We've got Kathy and Patrick. Kathy, feel free to put your video on or just unmute yourself and go for your question. Oh, she put it down. Patrick, have you got a question?
No, I got a comment.
Oh, okay, well, that's fine.
No, thank you so much for this. I think it's great. In some ways, I think I've done okay. In other ways, you've highlighted many of my failings. You know, we've got long servers in our and that's good. You know, I don't mean it as a criticism, it's good. We've got long servers. I mean, some of my staff have been with us for over 30 years. We've scaled down, but I've actually not paid enough attention to communicating in the way you guys are saying I should. And so I thank you for that. You've, you know, we do communicate, but not nearly enough as outlined in this Zoom meeting. So I just want to thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. I think it's about, like Julia said right at the top of the meeting, it's about knowing your team and trying different ways that work with them and finding out what they like. I mean, you can't do the same for everyone all the time. So, you know, some people don't like the video on, but I also really agree with Julia. And I think for one-to-ones, it's an absolute must. We deliver training in some public organisations where the culture is to not have the video on, and you guys don't have your video on today. I find that challenging. You know, I like to see the people. So thanks, Patrick. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's strange times, but just get to know your team, do different things, mix it up. Samuel says he insists on videos being on during his courses. And Kathy said she was clapping as opposed to raising her hand. So don't worry, Kathy, that's fine. So I'm going to draw that to a close. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on the call today. It's been such fun. Last one of the year, Julia. And yeah, just any thanks. We will be sending you round a link where this will be going up online. Anything else from you, Julia?
No, thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
And thanks, Paul, and thanks to everybody who came on the call today.